All right, here we go. This is Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Mike Heller, voice of Wisconsin football, will join us here momentarily. They've been on a nice little kind of bouncing back into this thing as well. That Big Ten West is a mess, and we'll discuss that with him here momentarily on 365 Sports as well. John McClain, Houston Chronicle, NFL at 5:30 today as well. The Big Ten Western Division, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Purdue, and Iowa are all 4-2. Illinois 3-4 had the nice win, and then Northwestern and Nebraska pick up the bottom of that division. It is now madness in the West. We're joined by Mike Heller, Heller Sports, on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports, the voice of Wisconsin football. Man, it's going to get interesting. Maybe it all plays out, Mike, but this could be one of those where tiebreakers just go crazy, right?
Yeah, to be clear, though, on the West side, if Wisconsin goes ahead and beats Northwestern and Nebraska and Minnesota, there is no tie.
Okay.
And if there would be, it would be with Purdue or Iowa, and Wisconsin holds that tiebreaker. So, when Wisconsin got off to the 1-3 start, they dug themselves a hole. But when Purdue won at Iowa, it reopened the door, and Wisconsin found their identity again, an identity that has seemingly always been theirs, of a really strong defense and a great ground game. And they have parlayed that into being back in control and at the wheel to decide how their season shakes out in the end.
Mike, Graham Mertz, I know, is a focal point for Wisconsin fans' consternation, but he's steadied his play. I know that he's not to what they thought he was going to be when he rolled in as a freshman and essentially sent Jack Cohn out the door. But what has been the uptick in his play that's helped?
Well, I think the ground game. To be fair, Wisconsin has been an offense that, other than the Russell Wilson year, has been predicated on the run game to open up the throw game. And initially this season, it didn't happen that way. And he had to throw it at times against Penn State and against Michigan and against Notre Dame. And he didn't do it very well. He didn't get protected very well, and defenses weren't respecting Wisconsin on the ground because the offensive line hadn't kind of come together. So I think two things have happened. One, they've run the football, and they didn't rely on him. Shoot, they won a couple of games where he threw the ball 8 times and 11 times. So against significant opponents. So once that happened, then I think that there was some ease and a little bit more confidence in him making a few throws. It's just like a hitter in baseball at times, struggling for a long period of time, and they hit a little Texas leaguer for a double, and then for whatever dumb reason, it begins to click. And I think that Mertz has been a little bit on that side of it. He threw a couple of balls a few weeks ago that ended up being pretty darn good, and he's found a rhythm and a confidence. And right now, it's pretty. It's a pretty complimentary offense that they're getting. He threw for 240 last weekend at Rutgers. Now, Rutgers is not a great measuring stick. However, that 240 can yield dividends when they're home against Northwestern and home against Nebraska and at Minnesota. Wisconsin, strangely enough, has been favored in every game this year, and they will be the rest of the way until or unless they play in the Big Ten championship game.
How much do you think just that difficulty of the early season schedule? I know they played some teams like Iowa and Purdue here recently as well who have, had their successes, but how much of just playing 3 top teams in those first 4 weeks and getting off to that 1-3 start maybe caused some consternation and just getting onto a schedule where you're not facing a number 15, number 10, number 11, 3 out of the 4 weeks help matters?
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, and to be fair, they should have beaten Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
That changes the whole trajectory of the season had they won that opener. I'm front and center on them, and they should have won that. And even though the score would dictate differently, should have beaten Notre Dame in Chicago. But let's just take one back and make that Penn State game different in the result. Wisconsin's still playing for more than just a shot at playing in the Big Ten championship game. When the next playoff committee's rankings come out, Wisconsin's going to be somewhere around 17 or 18. And if they go ahead and beat Northwestern and go ahead and beat Nebraska, no style points in either one of those. But then you go ahead and beat Minnesota. Wisconsin's probably 12th in the country in the playoff committee's voting with 3 losses. What would they be if they were 2 losses and or 1? But playing that difficult schedule, should have won at least one of them. But the cool thing for those who follow this program is that they stayed the course. A lot of locker rooms split when you start 1-3, and before the season you were talking about being a playoff team. And this locker room and this team didn't split. The family stayed together.
How much do you think the way Notre Dame ended, Mike? I mean, a 31-point fourth quarter. I remember watching some of that game, and I look up 30 minutes later, and I'm like, my God, what happened? How much of that, giving respect to Michigan, they're good, how much do you think that may have carried over against the Wolverines?
Yeah, it had to. And the other part of that is Mertz the quarterback hadn't found anything yet, and they really didn't identify in the ground game. I'd have to look back at it specifically, but I don't think Braylon Allen, the true freshman, who's only 17, and he's run for better than 100 yards in 5 straight games, I don't think he saw significant playing time until that point. They wanted to, he's a kid that didn't play a whole lot of running back. He came here as a linebacker. So, I think that there was a carryover against Michigan. I also think, despite their loss to Michigan State, Michigan's a pretty darn good football team, and Wisconsin had some attrition from what happened the week before and a couple of weeks prior to that against Penn State. So, I think there's something to the carryover effect.
Yeah, he had like 5 touches against Michigan, or 5 carries against Michigan, and then since that time, he's got like 100 in the last 5 or 6 games.
Right, and they had a kid that transferred out of the program, Jalen Berger, and Ches Malusi was the featured back. I think they love what Braylon Allen could do, but I don't know how quickly they thought he'd really pick it up. And the kid's tremendous. And the kid is 17. Like, he should be in his high school senior season right now. He should be playing as a senior in high school. He's just a kid, but boy, is he talented.
You mentioned Malusi there. What is the latest on his injury? And if he's not available to go after getting hurt last weekend, going down last weekend, is this just all on Allen, or where do they look as far as further running back depth?
Well, I think so. So Braylon Allen, Malusi's the question mark on a knee injury last week. Braylon Allen is going to be featured. And then they had a redshirt freshman, Julius Davis from the Milwaukee area, Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. He emerged. Brady Shipper is a former walk-on. That it is a question, but Northwestern is the worst in the Big Ten against the ground to defend the rushing attack. So I don't know that it becomes a big issue this Saturday. It's Nebraska that I would point to, 11 days from now, because Nebraska has been in every game. Now they're good enough to lose a lot, but they have, against really good competition, they've been in every single game. So Nebraska is the one I would hope that they're trying to get to see where Malusi is and if he's still okay to go. I think they'd be okay against Northwestern without, but I think they'd want him to be available by the time they got to Nebraska and then Minnesota to finish.
Mike, we're up against a break, but didn't you cover the Ryder Cup? Weren't the last time we spoke with you, you have a restaurant or whatever. Did you ever get to play Whistling Straits after the Ryder Cup?
I did not go back and play the course after they played the tournament. I've played it a number of times over the years, the Straits course, and it's everything it looks like on TV. It is fantastic. If I go play a course I've already played once in my life, if I go play it again tomorrow, that would be my first choice. Now, I have others that I haven't played that would be above it for a first-time experience, but of all the courses I've played, that's by far the one I would go back and play tomorrow. And, I was talking to you guys coming back from Whistling Straits and heading to a wine bar that my wife and I own just north of Madison called Red and White. Now, you know what we did there? We combined both the red and white wine and red and white for the University of Wisconsin.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
Makes
go.
sense.
Very, very marketing smart. Mike, thank you, man. Appreciate what you do, and we'll have you on hopefully at the end of the year. They keep this run going. Appreciate it.
Yeah, guys, I'd like to do it. Thank you.
That's Mike Heller. Heller Sports, by the way, on Twitter. Appreciate his time. And, yeah, the Whistling Straits was my backdrop on my laptop for a long time because it's just gorgeous, the colors and the different shades of what they have with the bunkers and the dunes and the green.
Art's never invited you to go anywhere?
Who?
Art?
No, I got an email from Art about some trips coming up that he has, but
You take Eric.
It's not free.
You kind of owe him for the Rolling Stones.
That's right. By the way, we'll take a break here. Craig Smoak's off the radar. 5 o'clock, we'll have Gabe